Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of Risking It All. Remember to give us a follow on all the socials. And today we're missing one of our usual hosts. Brian has decided to go sunning himself in Tenerife, so it's just myself, Andy from McDade's Coaches, and Barry from Jolly Media Marketing. Today we're joined by Dr. Scott Muir, and I'll not go into the rest of the letters after his name because I can't remember them. And full disclosure right at the start, Scott is very lucky to be my brother-in-law, favourite brother-in-law I should say.
Glad you said that first, Andrew.
God help you.
There's a story in there, everyone. Hang on into this. Keep listening.
So Scott, we'll just start where we always do. So if you're going to take us back to little Scott, your childhood and education, and give us a wee bit of background into yourself.
So hello to all your listeners, and thanks very much for the opportunity. A little bit more disclosure. I was probably about 2-3 months ago you asked me to do this, and I've been working quite hard recently to get finished up in the job I've been doing. So I've been a wee bit busy. So Andrew asked me last night, would you be the substitute? So you know how I feel about that. Then can you stand in and be number 13 on the pitch? But great.
Unlucky for some.
Yeah. So
definitely a saviour though. Thank you for coming on.
And also, if we're going to go right back to where I started, everyone needs to remember where that is in terms of the current technology and age that we live in. In fact, this lovely studio I'm in, we're going back to somewhere like 1977, 78, and working our way in for a wee boy that first memories are growing up in Uddingston, called a Braes. Story starts a wee bit before then. Wee house in Moss End that I've got no memory of at all, guys. Whisked away to Stonehouse to a mum and dad that thought that was absolute miles away from civilization. Funnily enough, I've ended up living very, very close to that, and it isn't too far away from civilization. In fact, it's great living there. But back then, mum and dad wanted to get back to Uddingston from where they were from and where all their family was. And the story starts off with me heading off to Tannockside Primary School. My auntie being my teacher for the first class I remember, and that doesn't work out very well when your auntie's your teacher, because instead of getting all the favouritism and all the help, you get pulled out in front of the class as the new guy in the area. And so my first year in Tannockside was a tough one. But
there's no secrets with that, eh? If it's your auntie, how did my boy do at school today?
Grassed up all the time, Uncle George telling my dad about everything I'd been up to and all the rest of it. But if you're wanting the story to head towards dentistry, it doesn't start there. Of course, like every wee boy at the age of 5 or 6, I wanted to be a footballer, play for the team I supported, and then play for Scotland.
I love how there was no instant disclosure. This has been filmed just after the Rangers Celtic game, so tensions are high.
And I need to run home for Andrew. So, of course, primary school passed by pretty well quickly. And the reason I mentioned primary school was I got to the end of primary school and the school strikes had started. And mum and dad had so my mum was working for my dad had his plumbing business, and he'd gone from having one van on the road to 3 or 4 to 4 or 5, and was doing pretty well at the time. Stress was getting to the two of them, but they were working their backsides off, and they were kind of starting to think about what happens when I go to secondary school. My wee sister being 3 years younger, there'd be a bit of time before they were thinking about that. So the natural progression would be Uddy Grammar, but Uddy Grammar at the time, it was hit with most schools with strikes, and I think it was my mum. I think my mum more than my dad came up with the idea of how about we send the first cousin in the family, the bigger family, to private school, and that went down like a lead balloon. And as you can imagine, there was a bit of conversation within the family, and grans and my gran and grandpa and everyone going, well, why not just hang on in there? The strikes will be all right. From a personal point of view, I was dragged to 3 schools in Glasgow from a boy that hadn't really been outside Uddingston, and shown 3 schools and said, which one do you want to go to? and I had no idea where any of them were. So, Kelvinside, Glasgow Academy, Hutchie Grammar, and I don't know, I just picked, like Glasgow Academy, it just seemed to be a nicer, it seemed to be a nicer kind of fit for me when I went on the day, and got accepted, and it comes round to the week before I have to go to school, and we do a trial run. So I want everyone to visualise, no phone, none at all, right? No idea of when a train comes, doesn't come. And you guys have done plenty of podcasts with guys that have got bus businesses, and I know it's close to your heart, Andrew. It's definitely the day where you get no buses for like an hour, and then 6 came. And I'm told that you have to leave the house at 7:30, walk to the train station and get to this place in the Great Western Road, which I'd never heard of in my life, by 9 o'clock. And if you don't get there, you're getting the belt.
So this would have been when you were going to secondary school, is that
Secondary
right?
school. So I've got about, 11, 12, 1983, I think, ish, if I'm doing my maths right. Maybe it started, 83.
Aye.
So I want to tell you a wee bit about my first day. So I've been shown how to get there once by my mum, get me there, and now it's the real thing. So my cousin went to school just down the road, Kelvinside, and he said, I'll meet you at the train station, 5 to 8, Uddingston train. So I'm there at 20 to 8. First and only time I've been early in my entire life, I might add, because I'm scared. You'll agree with that, Andrew. And I go on the train with him, and the train, in the old days for Uddingston, now they shoot all the way straight into Glasgow, but they went the underground. So you get to Glasgow Central, you get the subway, you get to the school. And that train's getting to Dalmarnock, and my cousin Neil says to me, just 2 stops to go. Gets in Argyle Street, and he jumps off the train. So I jump off the train as well as the doors start to shut, and he jumps back on, gives me with both hands the fingers, and waves cheerio at me. Now another thing that you need to visualise, an absolute other thing you need to visualise is Mum and Dad had no idea what private schools were like, and it's also not in the days of an all-boys school. So of course it's going to be the politest school in the world, where everybody's going to be waiting for the new guys to come. Most of the people have been in primary school, knew each other, and they're going to welcome you in wholeheartedly, Scott. And everybody you had to wear your school uniform, so you knew you identified who you were. That was fine. But I get the biggest briefcase in the whole world.
You're just well fit in between us.
Tan leather, you know, one of the ones that fold up like Constantina. So I've got the big briefcase, wee tiny guy, because I've never been tall. Big briefcase, all the rest of it. So now I'm in Argyle Street, and I'm thinking, I remember going shopping here on my granny. I think there's a Marks and Spencer's across the road. So I'll walk out of here, and I'm on Argyle Street, and I ask somebody, how do you get to the Great Western Road? And they point me up to George Square. Get the number 20, son. I'll take you straight into the school. And actually, that was the best bit of advice I got that day. So I'd straight up on the bus, saw a couple of people with the blazers on, into school. And now I'm walking into school for the first day ever with a briefcase. I think it took roughly about 5 minutes before I took my first doing.
I'm just thinking as you're talking there, if I went to Holy Cross High School in Hamilton, and if you turned up there with a briefcase in day one, you were in serious bother.
We're going to still, this story keeps going, so hang on in there, listeners. This is one of many doings in the first day. So it's only a half day, and my dad's workshop was in Bellsill. So this time, I've got another journey. I've got to get back to Central, but now I know I can go back to Argyle Street if I want, and this time go to Bellsill on a different line, or one that just goes further on. Anyway, I managed that. Get off at Bellsill, the only guy getting off with a Glasgow Academy uniform, just as Bellsill Academy gets out at lunchtime. And I'm up the main street running the gauntlet. So that was another kicking. So my mum and dad asked me how my first day at school was. You can imagine my reply.
I can see how you've still got such a vivid memory of that day. That's not something that would
Well, I
leave
also
you.
remember it's been told quite categorically just how much mum and dad were sacrificing and how much it was costing to go to this school, and you were going back the following day. So anyway, that was the school
The
career
introduction
started.
to that. And did school get any better for you after day one?
It did, and I had a great time in Glasgow Academy. A couple of things that were interesting. I wasn't tall enough to play rugby, So that kind of alienated me a little bit from a lot of the guys that were playing a lot of rugby, but hockey served me well. We created a hockey team and we did all right. I didn't really enjoy the cadet side of it. I don't know if listeners will know that some of these schools are still war memorials, and you have to choose whether you go into the Army, Navy and Air Force. And of course, and with my pals, the Army uniform was much cooler. Should have chose the RAF all day long. Why did I not go up in the air? Some of my pals are coming in having flown gliders, and I've been in the muck and Gairloch Head or something like that, you know.
So how did that work then? Did you go for placement work experience and stuff like that with those areas, or
within the cadets?
Yeah.
Aye. So you had 1 day a week. If I remember correctly, it was Monday. It certainly gave you discipline, because the guys that came out were the real army guys, and they're not your school teachers.
No.
Some of the school teachers were involved, and they had their own positions within territorial armies and the army and stuff like that. But the guys in the army they didn't miss you, and there was no messing about. So that's probably the first bit of I get your acting in gear, because teachers would give you punnies and things like that and detention, but the guys in the army give you a doing.
I could imagine.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just verbal, but you were put in your place. So by the time I got to fourth year, there was a couple of things that started to come to mind of why I wanted to be a dentist. First thing was my mum and dad. So my dad's business had seen the high and then seen the low as a builder didn't pay him. Maybe when I was in second or third year, we had to move house to create cash. And my dad had to start again, which eventually he moved on to a job with Rentokil, to come pretty soon. I'll tell you some good stories with Rentokil. Inside that, I had some cracking wee jobs. Oh, sorry, one really good sideline and one not so good. Let's start with a good one. My mum had a clothes shop, one of the first designer shops just outside Glasgow, and she had fashion shows, and this was the days where not everyone had designer gear or wanted designer gear, so it was like a designer made one dress and somebody came along and bought it. So some of the more famous TV presenters that have come into BBC Scotland and ITV, and famous people around about Scotland were models then. And if everyone remembers back in the day, all the models were on the tennis cans. So, of course, at the age of 15, 16, that's where your pals knew who these ladies were, or some of them. And I got the opportunity during my mum's fashion shows to dress them. Downside is not a single soul in the whole world believed me. So I used to go to school, on a Thursday and say, "What did you do last night?" I was like, "I was in the City Chambers dressing," and I'll mention some of these names. Are like, "Shut up, you!" and I was, and so and they were, the sense of humour of these models were brilliant. They were good, and they were good with me. And that was the best job. Then I think my dad took the hump that I was getting such a good job for my mum. So still being in his plumbing business, then said, "Well, you know what, son, I'm going to show you why you don't want to be a plumber." And I know there's loads of good reasons why you want to be a plumber, but he just obviously couldn't handle the fact that I was dressing models at the time. So I got the job out on the tools with my dad, but I didn't get the good jobs. I got the dig a trench in the back garden, sit underneath the floor until I need to hand a pipe, and then hand the pipe back up and sit under there for another 2 hours.
Dad, when's the next pipe coming?
and this is all still at a pretty young age then? This is you,
Aye, so this was still well before 15 anyway.
Yeah, because that's interesting, because when you think about experience and life skills, say you're 15 or 16 at this time, you've experienced a glimmer into the army. Then you've got the fashion world, which must be sitting there thinking, happy days, this is magic. And then now you're into plumbing. But actually, when you think about it, that's quite a lot for someone at that age to experience. That's pretty good.
And when you put it that way, Barry, why did I not choose the fashion world? I don't know.
I was thinking that could be a question.
Don't ask me that, because that just popped into my brain. It's like, what did you, wait a minute, schoolboy error, as they say. Why did I just keep going with that? Anyway, so my dad then moves on to Rentokil, and as I say, that's going to be the start of me earning some money. But why dentistry?
Before we get into that, actually, so you said your dad moved to Rent-A-Kill.
Yes.
I have no idea what that is. Can you explain what that is?
Aye, okay, so
No.
So back in the day, Rent-A-Kill, I mean, I think they got FTSE 100 company. They kind of facilities management side of their business did really well. But they started off with rats, pigeons.
That's what I was thinking in my head. I was like, is that like a...
The side that they needed for plumbers were water and ventilation.
Right,
So
got you.
any big cooling plant, and I got to see some absolute crackers, and we'll come into the whiskey industry in a minute, which I'll bring in a list about TC whiskey. And some of the the big pharmaceutical companies that I got to see were absolutely brilliant. And my dad was lifting a massive boiler off. The days where the boilers are not like the ones now, and his back went, and again, between that and the business going a wee bit flat, he kind of took a sales job and a management job in Rent-A-Kill. So he was able to get me a job. But there's a couple of years to go between that, Barry, where I started to look around about what I'm going to do. Mum and Dad have said, don't do a job where people don't need you. Sales, clothes, sales, self-employed businesses have got a lot of up and downs. Do a job where computers can't beat it, and I'm talking about ZX Spectrums and BBC computers. You'll not remember these early computers. But my mum had the foresight to see that the way the world was going to go and jobs could be replaced by technology. So I started to look at the nicest cars in the street. And as usual, dentists will get BMWs, aren't they? And nobody had a BMW then. And I thought, this looks like a decent job. My next door neighbour was one of my best pal at the time, and his big brother was starting dentistry. And he was quite a cool guy. He was into his music, and I thought I could maybe copy what Joe's doing back in the day. And then came the big event. I'm out playing first hole, Bothwell Castle. Don't play a lot of golf, but the opportunity I got is between two of my other pals. One ball goes out to the right hand side. Tony's ball goes the furthest on. Mine's a wee bit short of Tony's. And the reason I mention that is that none of these balls are near each other, and the three of us shouldn't be within any, talking distance of each other. So I stopped to watch the first shot getting played on the right hand side, and the next thing I knew, I thought I was on my way to heaven. I just remember an explosion in my face and thinking, as I hit the ground, brain hemorrhage or stroke or whatever you called it the day for a 15-year-old. And as I looked up for the ground, the first thing I saw was my pal Tony going, "Oh, thank God you're alive." Murder weapon in his hand. And Tony, out the blue, nowhere near his ball, decided to take a full practice swing with a 4-iron without seeing me standing there. So it broke my jaw.
Right.
Broke two of my front top teeth. Straight to Monklands.
I didn't know he was near these ball.
No, it wasn't. It was a shot in the. It was a full shot in the.
Actually did mean it. I thought you were just standing
murder
behind
attempt,
him.
to be honest. And I hope Tony hears this, and he's heard of his wedding and all the rest of it. But anyway, the story's a wee bit got arms and legs and a wee bit old now. But out the blue, I'm on my way to Monklands, and I got a cracking dentist 3 days later. Guy, I'd like to say thanks. Harry O'Donnell in Whifflet, and he fixed all my teeth, and that was it. When I watched what he did and how he kind of got me out of pain, I thought I'd love to do that. And to be fair, that was my only experience. I hadn't had many fill-ins myself. I mean, lucky enough to avoid that. And I thought that's all dentists do, is just fix front teeth and make people happy. And I thought, right, I'm really going to stick in.
So that was the point where you decided you're going to be a dentist. Have you ever thanked your pal for hitting you with that 4-iron, or you've had a good career in dentistry?
Bigger than me, I can't really thank him that much. I'd like to thank him.
So obviously when that happens, quite a traumatic experience by the sounds of things. But how do you go about from that then? So I'm going to be a dentist. What did you do next? How did you get into the industry?
So back into school, cracking biology teacher at the time, guidance teacher, said, look, what do I need to get in? And
what was it back then?
Nothing like it is now. If I remember correctly, we were 5Bs.
Right.
But at 5Bs running off 5th year.
Aye, one sitting.
And I ended up missing 5th year with a crazy kind of glandular fever style illness. So my 6th year was 5th year. And I got 4 A's. Sorry, didn't. I got 4 B's and 2 C's back the day off one run. And I got in with a, dare I say, skin in my teeth. But that'll do. I'm in. I'm in. And now I'll tell you a nice bit of starting to earn some money that my pals in dentistry didn't. So at this point, my dad said, well, listen, if you're going to go to Dundee and go to uni, you're going to need a couple of quid, pal. So you've did the plumbing. I can get you a job doing all the cooling towers and cleaning the water tanks. And you can do it all summer, you can do it at Christmas time, you can do it Easter, and if you get any bits in between study leave. So I did that for 7 years. And by the time I graduated, I was actually supervisor with Rent-A-Kill. And could have bailed out and had a job there, but that wasn't on the cards. But I had some great times. You know, we were in Newcastle, Elgin, Inverness, everywhere. And between the guys I worked with and some of my friends that then did the odd wee jobs, we flooded every big building in Glasgow and flooded Newcastle Uni. I think I was me and my pal were called Elmer Flood in that building. Not our fault, but when you drop 20,000 gallons out of it should go out into the alley, and the plumber that made the building 30, 40, 50 years ago hasn't even put a pipe to go out there, and it just goes right through a building like this.
Yeah.
And you've got to kind of stop it pretty quickly. And it's full of chlorine. And what was good about that job was I could go out with my pals, socialise, stay out to 2 in the morning, go to Gloss back in the day, place I met my wife, and get 2 hours worth of sleep, get the guys that would, I was just the boy. So I would get picked up at 5 in the morning, drive to Elgin, time clock started. So we're getting paid for the minute you get picked up, all the way up Aviemore, keep going, start the job, go back, get digs, work through lunchtime, go for my dinner, still getting paid, get back to 11 o'clock at night, switch the plant off. And I was getting great hours. And there was no minimum wage, but I mean, we were well above what anybody else was earning then. So the time I graduated without any debt.
Yeah, it's
And
really good.
It's good.
Great holidays and things like that. So part-time jobs do work out.
If you get a good one.
And I earned up to whatever I got up to whatever you could have tax-free.
Threshold.
Yeah.
Mum and Dad still looking after us, and you know, I had no other. It was beer vouchers. And
Yeah, enjoyed yourself.
you
Go, Andy, sorry.
I was going to say, so uni finishes, you graduate, don't want to go down the Rent-A-Kill route. So where was your first dentistry job then? I'm assuming you don't obviously start owning a business. You need to start working for somebody else.
No, nothing like it. So there's fairly well regulated through the university and the NHS. So vocational training, as it's known, and it's a great thing. Eventually got really much involved, and maybe my favourite bit of the job that I've ever did was becoming a vocational trainer. But going back, I'm 23. When you're around about January, dentistry's changed a wee bit because the current way the universities work is you do your finals. It's a 5-year course, do your finals 4th year, and then 5th year is more clinical. Back in the old days, Middle Ages, we were right up to doing all the clinical examinations and examinations in 5th year, which meant your last 6 months was pretty crazy because you're trying to get jobs and present them, patients treatment, and present them to professors as well as an exam tomorrow. And that's pretty crazy. So I'm glad they've changed it. But your first job, by January, you got a list of people who were qualified and their practices were qualified to look after dentists for the first year. And you were going to then be salaried, which was really good as well because that took the pressure. Because there's no way you could do the amount of work that would create enough to sustain any form of lifestyle, you know, a car, a house, or, you know, nothing. Because you're a low dentist graduate at the top end of education, you're going to take an hour and a half to do a filling.
Yeah.
Aye.
So
Takes
it's-
time.
Let you write
it's
about
just-
it.
you know,
Unfortunately, as
and-
someone who's had a few fillings, I know that feeling.
Well, and also if you went to work for someone and you're doing 3 fillings a day, they're bankrupt as well.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a great system. And fortunately enough, I got a job on my first interview. So I went to a lovely guy called Colin in Whitburn, and the practice was lovely. The people were great, and 2 people in particular, Lisa and Mandy, who I've not seen I've seen Mandy, but I haven't seen Lisa for many years. Really made me feel great coming into practice. And by the time I drove home and got back to my landline, the phone rang and I had a job. And that took the pressure off there. And in that year, I was, come back to that, I was going to say even my next job I got, I was kind of like the apprentice boy. But in Whitburn, people were just really great just to have a dentist. Son, I need new wallies. Can you make me a pair? You know, and there was no pressure. It was just a really, really good, a good job.
So you had a good
and the highlight of
environment.
that year, every Friday, Chinese lunchtime on a Friday, back in, work a couple of hours, finish for the weekend.
Perks of the job, I think we might
Never
need to start
never
doing
happened
that.
again.
And see, obviously you mentioned there, so that was quite an intense period of study. So like 4 years, then clinical, which is like, I'd imagine that's hands-on, dealing with patients and stuff as well. Did you find that whole experience difficult, or was it easier for you because you always wanted to be a dentist, so you had that motivation? How did you find the studying
Barry,
part?
I nearly made a complete backside of it in my first year in Dundee. So I went to Dundee for 2 years. And the reason I came back and finished the degree in Glasgow, my mum had a couple of heart attacks. And it's quite difficult just kind of being slightly away from them. I had my wee car because of my rent-a-kill money, but within the first year up in Halls of Resins, I'd blown that money and the car got sold.
Right.
So back in the bus again. And she wasn't keeping too good at all. So I came back to Glasgow to finish things. First year, we had a subject, and for anybody that's listening that does this, they might be much better than me, called embryology. And I couldn't get this in my head. I just couldn't get enough to do an exam in it. And I failed it. I might add, the only exam in the dentistry I failed, but it was in my first year and almost my first exam. And then I got a resit. And if I put a wee bit of humour in this, so I don't think anybody can check back the records, I'm pretty sure, because if you failed the resit, you were out in first year back then. Mm-hmm. That was it. You go and get another course. And I'm pretty sure I failed that resit. And I didn't pay anybody, but the letter came through saying you've did enough to pass it. So obviously, maybe whoever was sitting the reset with me, maybe the pass mark was like 15% or something. Write your name.
That's one of the ones, but you get it and you go, I'm no disputing that, that's it, I'm away.
I don't know whether, because it was partly to do a bit, obviously first year's more medicine than the latter years. So you're integrating a little bit with the medics at this point, and I don't know whether whoever was marking it went, bloody hell, he's going to be a dentist. He's never going to need to know any of that ever again. And let's put it this way, it's not in the course anymore, as far as I'm aware.
Right, okay.
But it was just back in the day, something you had to learn. So I think somebody upstairs helped me out with that one.
We need all the help we can get, don't we? That's fine. So apart from the one touchy moment in first year, the rest of the time,
screwed in that big time thereafter.
Yeah.
There was something. It's hard. It's a hard course, and great group of people. You kind of break up into 60 people in the class, and maybe everyone knows each other, but maybe everyone's got 15, 20 close pals, and everyone helps each other if you're good at one thing and not so good at the other. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, and really grateful to Glasgow Uni for the education I got there. So I enjoyed every minute, and you probably don't appreciate university until it finishes. And I remember going, so now of course you get everything beeped again in your phone, and you get told probably a bit of an anticlimax now, isn't it? Even
Aye.
for young adults getting their hires and their standard Nat 5s and stuff on their phone. You actually had to wait till someone came in the post, and then and with the Glasgow uni, you had to walk up to the uni, and you're walking there going, what if this says an F on it? And then of course when it doesn't, you and that's, you know, your pals, you're straight to the pub or the cheese and wine of the insurance company wants to sell you insurance company for the rest of insurance for the rest of your life because they put that on, and then you have the biggest night out of your life. I don't know if I really want to see it here.
Oh, I do remember that night out. Well, I don't remember the night out, but I remember the party in your mum and dad's house.
Oh, chings.
No, the only person I've ever seen down a pint while doing a handstand. Genuinely.
And that might be the most impressive skill we've had on the podcast so far.
When it comes down your nose.
If we've got time, we might need to see that live.
It is on video, so it's on old video somewhere. Still good tell. I know. And you know, those were the days. They were brilliant. First job, you know, I say, great. And then I move on to work for a guy that I'm still very much good friends with, David, and his practice in Motherwell. And David was, you know, graduated 5 years before me.
So he was before you?
Yeah, but he knew the ropes. David was switched on, and he taught me an awful lot. And so that's the kind of bit where you learn the ropes, the real ropes,
Right.
how to really do the job
so
well.
David was 4 or 5 years ahead of you in regards to when he graduated, and was he the owner of the practice when you
Aye,
joined?
and so talk about being entrepreneurial. David was straight in, so he did his VT was starting back in those days. So David's VT wasn't like mine; it was quite structured, and you had so many days. They were just making it up as they went in. So he was part of the kind of first group of that, and then he finished doing that and immediately bought a practice. And that practice was,
That was a big practice as
It was
well,
a big-
because that's when you first started treating me.
well, a lot of
And,
patience and some crazy ideas. And I don't want to bore people with actually clinical care and stuff like that, but just to give you a wee idea, they used to do, everybody needed a checkup, got 2 days to come in, and then for the other 28 days or whatever it would be in the month, you got the treatment, and then you start again. So what happened was you had no idea how many patients would come in. And
right, okay.
And you would come in and you would get a 1, 2 or a 3, the patient, and you would go down to the reception and you'd hand your 1, 2 or 3 in, and then the reception would tell you when to come back. 1, 2 or 3 meant 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and there was no chat about what the patient was coming back for. So the dentist would decide whether you needed a filling, a tooth out, an impression.
In 15 minutes?
Oh, no. The patient was in for 2 minutes. Aye, 2 minutes for
you're
checkup.
getting 15 minutes.
5 minutes. Takes me 5 minutes to say hello. But it takes me an hour to say hello on Sunday. So, thankfully, the only day that happened to me was almost my first day. And I went to David and said, David, we can't be doing it. And he's like, Scott, I know. It's ancient and everything was changing, you know, from all the infection rules. And this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we had to change everything, and we did it. And David did.
So was this
most of it.
before, like, because I'd imagine a lot of dentists that are well run now have quite a systemised approach with like lots of history on patients and everything's
aye.
all digitalised. Is this before then? How did they keep notes and
just
stuff?
paper,
Aye.
and it was very minimum,
Right.
minimum. You know, Barry filling top right, second last tooth.
That was it.
That was it. You know, almost. And David must have been one of the first guys to bring computers into
Right.
to the practice. He was right up there. The bloody things broke down every day.
Mm-hmm.
So we still had to keep paper records because otherwise you were in the dark. It's not like it was now, you know, just the programs took 20 minutes to start and then they would last for 20 minutes and then just break, you know, just crash.
Yeah.
And then there was no quick fix. You had to find the only person in the whole country that actually knew how to fix a computer.
So how long were you with David before you started to get the bug yourself? Because that what you weren't anywhere after him, or were you?
No. And this might sound a bit of a disappointing answer to folk that are watching and listening, but I was going along nicely. And I had no real jump in to the next thing. I was enjoying myself so much that the opportunity found me, and it found me in the shape of my wee sister. And so also, she probably will give me a bit of a kicking for saying this, but Heather didn't know what to do in her career, and so anything that he does, I'll do better. So along she comes, and she was 2 years behind me in dental school, and her class were great because I was coming into 5th year, which was kind of like being 6th year at school, and they were the young ones just coming into clinical, and so a lot of the guys were pals, and I was helping them in clinics and stuff. But anyway, Heather had jumped into a practice starting with absolutely nothing in Hamilton, and it was starting to get a lot of nice patients and starting to do well. And she crossed my path and said, would you quite like to get involved in something together? Now, the two of us kind of live in the same house, so having the same practice would just mean the whole thing would go up in fire, and she will agree with me on that one. So we thought, well, why don't we buy another practice? And not doing things by half measures, that started thinking, right, well, it's got to be a good one. And then I realised I had no money. So fortunately, we sourced funding from a lovely guy that was involved, that my mum worked for, mum's business with, and basically we had a third party investor, and there was a cracking practice for sale in Prestwick, and the dentist down there was doing really top end dentistry. One of the first guys in Scotland, amongst a handful though, but he was at a level above anything that I was doing. So that was scary because I had to go down and meet the dentist, and he was
flamboyant.
Yes. and hopefully he'll be watching, and I'm sure he'll crack a wee smile. And he is, and he's some man. So at that point, I think his back we all get bloody sore back. So his back had been sore, and he was just thinking about calling it a day. And he sold the practice to Heather and I. And that was another great first day because David ensured me that the other dentist, so himself and one other dentist, was going to stay. And a lady called Susie caught me on the first day and said, I'm away to Australia. Did David not tell you?
Ah, right, okay. Full of surprises.
So now we'll
Your
go.
first days seem to be quite full of surprises.
This is my first day doing this as well. So now I've got all these patients and not enough people to look after them in a time where you know dentists were hen's teeth. So the logical approach was to get back in to training new graduates in their first year. So I enrolled on that straight away, and that was a brilliant course because everybody that likes training people are pretty sociable. You're not people tucking themselves away and hiding for humanity. If you want to do that, you need to be out there. And I met some great guys, and that got me into the whole scene of older dentists in Scotland. So I got to meet everybody. And then, of course, then you've got all the graduates coming, and you can only give one person a job. But, of course, the following year, some of those guys are chapping their door to come and work for you. And we took that practice from, myself and David part-time to 9 surgeries, 9 dentists.
Wow.
Pretty well quickly, as well as expanded Hamilton quite nicely. But the next step in the career was David had got, as I say, maybe a handful of dentists into new technology called dental implantology. And I remember the first patient coming in that had virtually probably no teeth at all, and just metal rods with bridges on them, and maybe a chip in a crown. I'm making this slightly up, but there was an event that the patient had to be there, and he's saying, "So you're the new guy. What are we going to do about it?" And then having to honestly say to the person, "I've got no idea. I've got no training in this. Nobody had at that point. You'd have to be self-taught. There was no undergraduate teaching it worldwide almost." And I thought, hey. If we're going to do something right, we're not just going to go and do a wee course in Cameron House in Loch Lomond. I'm going to go back to uni. But at that stage, I'd realised that uni was probably not as scary as it was as an undergraduate, because you just want to graduate and get a job. Then I'm thinking, actually, I quite like that. We'd had 2 wee babies in 2 years. So Yvonne was having a nervous breakdown with the thought that, and I probably actually, guys, to be honest, I was actually getting me a wee bit out of jail there as well with some of my responsibilities.
You're going to do what?
And so off I went to Warwick Uni to do a degree in dental implant technology and clinical care, and I never looked back from there.
Right.
And that's why Andrew mentioned in the way in that you'd never really want me to be your dentist. You maybe fill that in, Andrew.
When was that? 'Cause I remember going down to Warwick, but that would have been, what,
2003 to 2007.
Right, and you graduated, I remember that.
And did you go to Warwick because that was one of only the few places that had this type of course, or was it widely available?
Absolutely, but and what was good about it, it was actually giving a university degree to it. So,
all right, okay.
So some early courses on doing certificate level, diploma level, but actually getting degree level on it. There was not the only one, but Warwick Uni was. It was also adaptable because you had to do quite a lot of clinical care on it. So they'd been one of the first systems to create guys in different cities in the UK,
right, okay.
and Ireland. So I dotted around between London, which was great to go and see Harley Street, Dublin, and a great guy in Belfast. And some good stories. Taxi drivers there as well. And what team do you support?
Belfast, you need to watch your P's and Q's are there. And talk to us a little bit about what that course was. So it's obviously implantation, dental. What was it exactly?
So this will be when you've lost a tooth.
Right.
Or there's no saving in it. So that could be you've had an accident, fell down the stairs. It could just be you've fought hard to save a tooth and it can't be saved any further. Or born with missing sometimes as well, you know. And it could be all the way to people who have lost all their teeth years ago, and you could put a couple of studs in, 2, 3, 4, and clip false teeth that stud on and stud off.
See, I think I've
that
got
changes people's lives.
I think I've got something like that, and I'll tell you a funny realisation of when I was younger. I fell in ice, right?
Okay.
And I split my front tooth. Like half of it just went flying off.
Yep.
So I was so young, obviously upset, didn't have a clue. Went to the dentist, they fixed it, and as far as I was aware, my tooth was back. Right? I didn't realise what had happened. So I think it's called a crown. You'll keep it right here. And I remember being in high school, like a couple of years after it, and I bit a tuna baguette. And it fell off.
Yeah.
And at that point, that was the first time I realised that I just had a tiny wee tooth behind the crown.
So you've just got the wee, but you still have the root on that one.
Yeah, that's right.
And then probably the nerve taken out of it.
Yeah.
And did it have a wee pin on it?
It just looked like a little tiny
glued up onto it.
Yeah.
So, and you've still got that?
I've still got that, but I remember just that realisation going, oh my God, I've got a tiny wee tooth. And then the full day I was getting ribbed off everyone.
Snaggle tooth.
So an implant would be an option if that all goes wrong.
Right, got you.
So, you know, that could be the next stage. There's other options as well. You could use the tooth next door and bridge it.
I'm just going to try not to fall in ice and hit my face anywhere.
And don't bite an end too hard and stuff like that.
So the implants, obviously, that was like an advancement in technology. So how exactly did that work compared to something like I had, like a crown and stuff?
Completely different.
Yeah.
So, of course, it involves the risk of if the tooth's still there and it's coming out, you can't put it back.
Right.
So what comes next, it really kind of does need to work, for both, well, mainly for the patient, but also for your own sanity. And that's interesting because it doesn't always work.
Right.
So we would now be getting into, I don't want to be boring any listeners.
No, I'm interested in all this stuff.
But, lots of illnesses, lots of autoimmune stuff. Just some people, bodies are too wise that perhaps it wouldn't take. So you quite quickly we realise you've got to have a contingency. And if you don't have a contingency plan, you need to be telling the patient for the start.
Right.
And actually that's the hardest bit to manage, because the jubilation of fixing something, so maybe people have got gag reflexes kind of with their top denture, whether it be a wee plate for a single tooth all the way to all their teeth. If you get that right and the patient gets rid of that, best friend for life.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, I mean, it's hard. Patients are crying in the surgery. They can't wear anything else,
Yeah, I think that must be quite
the
challenging for a
emotional
dentist.
side of it is utterly incredible, and for all those people out there maybe wonder why their auntie doesn't turn up at their wedding and things like that. Imagine having, or their granny, imagine having false teeth and having to sit beside somebody when you can't eat with them. You know, I mean, all the things that you forget what this is like. So to be able to bring back teeth to people was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Really, really good. And getting on that bandwagon, I kind of realised there and then I didn't really want to. It's difficult to do both because you need to set up. It's a different kind of surgical setup. Do it.
Yeah, so it's
move on. Back to when I was telling you that you can't do then a fill-in for 10 minutes and then back into that. Well, you can, but it eventually will really wear you down and you'll end up running late and have a queue out the door and all the rest of it. So that was kind of the end of the general dental.
Right, I see. So that was how you went from general dentistry, which could be anything depending on how they walk through the door, into more surgical implants and stuff.
But most guys that do implants still do everything else as well. I was just kind of sitting with 2 practices with a lot of dentists that would be happy giving me that job whilst they did
everything else.
Everything else. And then some of the guys, a lot of the guys then wanted to do what I did and I helped them get on their journey as well.
So there was a bit of sort of sharing expertise amongst each other.
Well, sorry, Andrew.
So I was going to ask you, so obviously you started moving into implantology rather than general dentistry, and you've said that you did have the 2 practices and they were feeding your patients into you, but not how do you go about making that a sustainable income for you? Because obviously not everybody one can afford to go and get an implant, but also not everybody wants to go through, which is effectively pretty major surgery. Because I know you're playing it down a wee bit, but it is somebody sitting in the chair for 5 hours while you're drilling holes in them. Do you know what I mean? So that's no for everybody. So how do you get those people into your chair? Because that must have been a bit of a struggle as well.
I think initially not to be overly expensive, and also as soon as I'd learned how to do it, my mentor, so a guy called Ken, immediately he had set up his own training school, which also then linked into Edinburgh Royal College. So he then asked me to help train dentists to do implantology. So of course, once I started doing that, they would bring their patients as well. And a lot of it was their mum, their dad, their aunties, their uncles, the next door neighbour, guy that worked for somebody, and that was brilliant because the people who were coming were really, really helpful, really nice, desperate to get involved in the new stuff. We really did have loads of patients, never really quiet. And I was kind of in pretty well early. So, of course, you do the maths. I'm not by far, the only person training lots of people. Lots of people are getting into it themselves. So the day will come where it won't be like the first 5-6 years. And it did change. Now you can go around the corner from here and meet and get an implant, or someone will tell you who the person in the area is that does implants.
Right.
So it changed. It changed. But I hope change it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's the way it should be. People shouldn't have to go from, Aberdeen to London to get an implant sort of thing.
Yeah. Did you see your business really grow once you came back and you were fully, competent with implants and started teaching everyone? Yeah,
I mean that added an extra dimension. It also attracted people to the practices. We were now 14, 13 times the size because we were, 1.5 dentists to begin with. And what happened next was we got the letter through the post asking us to sell the practice. And initially, I think Heather and I looked at that and thought, no, we're a wee bit young. But of course, partnerships are never going to be easy. And for, again, anyone's listening to this, it's, two minds in business is going to take a lot to hold it together. family members in business has got a toll on everybody around about you. And Heather and I made, I think, a good decision then to say, look, we've given it a good shot. We've got the option of making it bigger, but maybe now's the time. And so we took the opportunity and sold out. And that was scary. And that was the first time I'd really had the opportunity to deal with lawyers on selling anything in my life. And that's hard. Not because lawyers are bad people, but the law isn't easy.
And when did you sell the practices?
So that was 2007.
Right.
And if anybody's doing their history on that, they're going to notice
It's very
how
close to a
lucky-
very big year the following year, isn't it?
Aye, and right on the penny when we finished.
Right.
And a wee interesting thing that I probably could disclose now, when the banking crisis happened, our lawyers wrote in that said that if the bank that owned the company that bought us is now the company that is my dentist. And they're a massive company. They were smaller back in the day, and they were great to deal with. But of course, they back in the day before it became my dentist, this company had investors, and it was a bank called Merrill Lynch, and Merrill Lynch and was it I think at the time Lehman Brothers had collapsed.
That's right.
And the Bank of America was going to take one of those banks under its wings, and the other one was going to go down, if I remember correctly. And I had a clause to say that the practice would be back in Heather and I's hands for £1.
Well, thankfully they saved Merrill Lynch then, eh?
No, he saved the wrong one, and then I got it back for free.
Oh, you'd have got it back for free, right? Okay. So you'd have kept the money and got it back. All right, I get you now.
But that's just that would have been a bit wrong. But that was, I mean, when you see these things, and the reason I mention that is lawyers will bring that to the table, every eventuality, and you're like, well, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Never in a million years. This is the biggest bank in the world, or whatever. And 3 months later, we're watching the world collapse around about us financially, and you're going, wait a minute. How's this going to work for us? And then you get a phone call from your lawyer saying, by the way, if this happens, you might be back in position. And then you've got the question of, do I want to do it again? Hang on.
That would have been such a roller coaster of emotions, wouldn't it?
Wait a minute.
So what do you think would have happened if you didn't take that offer then? When you're looking back in it now, if you didn't sell up?
I think we would have probably went for a third practice and went bigger.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure both Heather and I would have had to become less clinical, because I don't think we could have did everything.
Management.
And would that have always worked out for the best? Because, you know, it's quite difficult to see patients rely on you. They want you kind of there as much as you can be. If you're only there 1 or 2 days a week, it puts pressure on the practice. So I think I'm pretty sure it was the right thing. Certainly the right thing to do for our partnership, which was the main thing. And it's difficult for the people that work with you and for you. So that becomes really, really interesting, because that's the first time where you're not in control, but you do have written into your financials, Andrew and I were talking about this on the way in, clawbacks. And the more that you, more hours you did, the more you worked in the place, the more that can be. So if you were in a partnership with 5 people and somebody was 1 day a week, they would have a less clawback, and somebody that was doing more hours. So there's a lot of stress there. And of course that would rely on the business, both the businesses doing what it's been doing for the last 3 years. Then it would rely on each business individually to do what it's doing for 3 years, and then you personally. And I'm very glad that the last bit was written in, which was, if you stay busy, you'll be all right, because things change. Once you sell a business, there's a lot of people in that business that are, well, the dentists don't like it.
Yeah.
New boss, don't like the new system, and things change, and you're not in control. So things go down by 10% here, got by 5% there, and it's quite easy to see how that type of sale could tip somebody over the edge.
So how long were you still working for My Dentist after they'd bought the practice then?
Oh, I mean, I well outside my tie-in period.
Right.
So, doing the math, 7 years, 8 years.
8 years after
8 years,
that.
yeah. But that business changed an awful lot as well.
Uh-huh.
And it's changed since then into what it is now. And I hear it's doing rather good business and doing rather well. But it has ups and downs as well, because what happens even with the guys that then buy the business off you and you become, colleagues and friends with them, they then get bought out by the next turnover, So that happened a couple of years after. So the banks changed, and then the whole company got bought over. And then, of course, those guys are getting their own rewards for being in head office. So they disappear. So everybody's got a strategy, leaves.
Right.
Yep.
And then new people come in and they've got different ideas and the business got different directions. By the time it got to roughly about 2013, 2014, it wasn't on the trajectory that business was in when I was bought over.
Yeah.
There was a little bit less buying of businesses going forward. They were restructuring, getting their house in order actually, and it was a bit weird.
Right. And I was just going to say, so that was 7-8 years you stayed on, and what have you been doing since then? So since you got out of the practice, what you up to nowadays? Are you still involved in dentistry?
No. So after so it was a little bit of mist, and probably my biggest adventure. I became partner in a larger practice in Glasgow.
Right.
2014, business partner there, and lots of journeys involved in there, dealing with banks, trying to generate cash to buy the practice, and eventually managed to pull that off. And I've had 10 great years there. I then continued to train dentists, loved it. We practiced, grew arms and legs, some smashing people, and big news is last month I retired.
Brilliant.
And it just feels like I'm on a do you know what it feels like? I suppose the first 2 weeks felt a wee bit like I'm on a holiday. I'm ready to go back. I've just been away there for a week, and then of course normally you come back from a week holiday abroad, you're getting straight back into work, which would have been yesterday. And now it feels like what we're all on in COVID.
Yeah.
Without the lockdown, if you know what I mean. Without the lockdown, but you're just a bit like, are we going back eventually? And now the real strangeness of that is kicking in, and that's why I was pretty grateful, very grateful to you guys saying come in and have a wee talk about it, because this is it's a bit unnerving this just now. and I've got probably if I was left to my own devices at the moment, I'd feel quite relaxed about it. But I've had the last 3-4 months of lots of lovely patients saying to me, "Are you sure?" I'm sure there's some people out there that went, "Thank goodness I'm not going to see that tone face again." But all the folk that came in before, all of the people I work with saying to me, wishing me well. But there are actually folks saying, "You'll be bored. You'll need to be back in work quick soon. What are you going to do?" And then that's that question: what are you going to do with yourself? And then they'll mention somebody that they know that lived next door that retired at the age of 55, and either got some really bad happen to them by 60 or jumped off a bridge, and you're like, "Oh, thanks for that." They had nothing to do with their life, and so all of that starts to build up in your head. You're going, "Did I make the right decision? Have I made the right decision? What do I do next? When do I start to think about it?" But I'm fortunate enough to have tons happening in the next 3 or 4 months within the family. 2 graduations, 21st, and one of my buddies take me to the Indianapolis 500, which is out the blue. So that's a great thing. So it'll probably be the end of the summer before I actually realise where I am.
Well, I think by the sounds of things, you've worked hard enough. I think it's time to enjoy yourself. So, and what do you think? Obviously, you're only 2 weeks into retirement, right? So this is a bit early. But what do you think you'll miss the most about dentistry and what you've done?
It's a brilliantly social job. If for all those people who are involved and want to be involved, who are studying, who are at school, if you like people, what a bloody job it is. Because, I mean, it's from being a dentist, I've been privileged by every single nurse that I've worked with.
Who's your favourite nurse?
Aye, well, so
He's trying to get in trouble.
and that would have to be Jill, Andrew's wife. So maybe you could bring that out in a podcast, Andrew, how you met Jill. So for those, Jill worked hand in hand with me as my nurse, and Andrew met Jill and are living happily ever after. That's probably we could interview Jill and Andrew.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Well, look, you've got a bit more time in your hand. You could become another co-host for us.
So, go back to the question about the best bits about dentistry is everybody I've ever met, and been able to see that it's a hell of an emotional. But the emotional side of it, and a wee bit into me, and this is a flaw in my character, the ups are so high, and the downs started to win a little bit.
Right. Okay.
And the downs are when you've tried your hardest, but it hasn't worked out. It doesn't happen that often, but I used to be better at it than I am now. And I think if I've worked in a job where, and who's got this job, I don't know. So, but in a clinical job where things aren't 100%, and I know there'll be people out there going, flaming heck, Scott, it's just teeth. It's not, you're not a doctor and you've lost somebody in the operating table. And I'm pretty sure, they must have some strength, these guys, to cope with that. But I was finding it a little bit harder to deal with, and it's probably the responsibility,
right? Okay,
was making it hard. So for all the responsibility and the joy of having the responsibility, the joy it's brought, I would say to anybody in dentistry that get in, go in wholeheartedly, find which part they want to do, and be entrepreneurial if it's in your nature. Get involved in practices. That's good. It's great. It's hard. It keeps the brain going really well. It's great dealing with practice managers. It's great dealing with clinical managers from body corporates, etc. It really is good. For me, I need to find my next thing.
Which is going to be...
If I want to live to 80.
And where do you see your next thing? And I know that's a question I've probably asked you about 10 times this week.
I mean, it's massive, the world there. So I've worked in, how many do we count out? 3 or 4 rooms since I was 23. Because basically, you go in at 9 in the morning, you come out at lunchtime, and you go back in until it's 5 or 6 o'clock, whenever you're working to. So I'd like to get involved in something that was a wee bit more open. I'd love to be a train driver.
Sure you don't want to drive a coach?
Well, so I've thought about that, and thanks for the offer, if that was an offer. And the bit that gets me there, Andrew, is I don't know how easy it would be when the 6'2", 15-year-old that you're running to school in the morning says, "Oh, driver, stop the bus, and I'm going to."
Don't call you driver for starters.
Yes.
Hold that kid. Stop the bus.
Exactly. I've not been used to that. I've been used to being the dentist where folk have got a bit more Sorry if you stop.
And you mentioned train driver. Why train driver?
Oh, I think that was my first. I never going right back to
Who's
when
a
I was
bit of
really
a
young.
geek?
Okay. Listen, anything that moves. I think I'm a bit old to train to be a pilot.
Right.
Although one of the ladies I worked with sent me an email saying that British BA are looking for pilots and you can apply under the age of 55.
Fucking better get your skates on.
Everyone's looked at me and went, you dare. Give her 3 months and we've been in the house. She'll be going, here.
Yeah, on you go. I'll drive you.
You're away, America, beat it.
Well, whatever you decide, let us know. It'd be great to hear what you get up to. And yeah, I mean, I think we've ran out of time already.
Yeah.
I've just realised. That was brilliant. Thanks for shedding some light on
thanks very
dentistry
much.
for us.
Thanks for the opportunity, guys.
Thanks for joining us,
And I
Scott.
wish you all the well with the podcasts, and I'll be listening to every single one.
Brilliant. No, don't be a stranger as well. Enjoy your retirement. And thanks again. That was magic.
Thanks, gents.